Tonight on Locked On Phoenix Suns, the draft just happened, and the Suns did a whole bunch of things that we were absolutely not expecting. They have two centers. They have 14 feet of newly acquired big men. How'd they do it? Why'd they do it? And are we excited? Next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into a live edition of the Locked On Suns podcast. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen, watch live immediately after the first round of the NBA draft. Don't forget, Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Just click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer. Get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode, guys, live on YouTube, the number 10 pick, a trade, and a whole lot to come next. Joining me to break it down live. I'm going to keep saying it. We're here.
Yeah.
From the Wild West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling, Ben Garcia?
I'm just going to say he's my guy. Last year, I was on the radio waves at Fox Sports, and I was clamoring for Ryan Dunn. Ryan Dunn is my guy. Great. I think it's still a solid pick, especially where they got him. I cannot believe he's on the Suns now, so we got to make sure he say his name correctly. But Khaman Maluach. I probably will mispronounce it later in the night. We are going to respect his name. Fell into his lap. Man, I'm stoked, man. Watching this all kind of unfold. We haven't had a lot of times recently to celebrate as Suns fans. I'm going to take the positive road tonight. I think tonight was a win. So there's your opening intro.
We will get to Mark Williams being acquired with a couple of first-round picks and how that factors in. We will get to what are the next steps off of this crazy draft night for the Suns. But let's start with the 7'2" Sudanese big man, South Sudanese big man, I should say, from Duke, Khaman Maluach, and a guy that we did not expect to be available here. Like, he was on both of the top threes, Ben, that you and I did yesterday. We addressed that it would be really great if he could fall, but we both said it wasn't likely. And then John Gambadoro, who obviously gives us so much precious info this time of year, he prefaced his whole list today, obviously a reported list of who the Suns could actually take, not the top three preferences like we did. But even he said the same thing. He's like, here's the top five I think are actually going to be realistic because I don't think Maluach is going to be there, and the Suns aren't expecting him to be there. So we'll just bypass him altogether, right? And then he was. And it kind of out of nowhere. It was only going to take, I think you would have to, like we all kind of knew, like if one team is going to reach for somebody we're not expecting, it'll open up. And Ace Bailey goes high, like we thought he would at least go before 10. He did. He went 5. So that faller was... Yeah, it did, but it got him out of the way to not be the guy who falls, for the Suns, and then they didn't have to make that decision or anything crazy. Then at 8, Brooklyn takes Yegor Demon from BYU, the Kevin Young product up there in Provo, and that is when I think every Suns fan's heart started to beat a little faster. Then Toronto passes on Maluach, a guy that had been mocked. He had been mocked there over and over. They didn't take him. And then there he was at 10, and the Suns went for it, Ben. And, yeah, he was definitely your guy, and I loved him as well. And he fits the biggest hole that this team had basically since the fall of 2023 when they traded DeAndre Ayton. And this is about as a big exclamation mark way to fill that hole as you ever possibly could think of.
This is what separates good organizations from bad organizations. Right now, tonight doesn't do away with all the dirty laundry of the Suns being a dysfunctional organization, at least recently. But it does show potentially the Suns took advantage of dumb organizations doing dumb things. And the Nets, I don't get it, man. You and I were talking pre-show. They have so many first-round picks. Do you need to make that many selections? Why don't you just move up, package up a couple of those picks and move back in and get your guy? It was very confusing, but overall, man, this is exactly who I wanted the Phoenix Suns to get, because you and I both agree here. I don't think the wing position was the biggest area of need. I believe it was the center position, especially this year, man. It was Nick Richards, who we could potentially talk about later, who we're not really sure now where he fits in this equation, Oso Ighodaro, and Mason Plumlee. Just from an athleticism standpoint, going from your backup big now, which we can get to Mark Williams later, Mason Plumlee, to Khaman Maluach, that is night and day. Is he going to have hiccups? Sure, man. But not only just that, but the defensive presence that I believe he will ascend to. So we'll get to the Mark Williams stuff in a little bit, but just an all-out, man, really great selection. Let me hear it from you, your reaction to it as well. Because, I mean, listen, we both thought he wasn't going to be here. My number one selection last night, kind of felt a little like cheating, because even I was a little hesitant. But I thought one team, we just needed one to do something dumb, and I think the Nets did. What was your reaction?
So, yeah, that pick for them is their fan base can get mad enough about that, but the Suns benefited, so I am not going to pick it apart. I think he's great. I mean, look, the only nits I even picked yesterday, and we should just say, like, again, he's 7'2", freshman, started all 39 games for a Duke team that went within, minutes of winning and heading to the national championship game with a very young squad, opposite Cooper Flagg in that front court. He was, not anything flashy in terms of numbers, because he only played 21 minutes a game, and, it's college, but 9 and 7 per game, beast on the offensive boards. He had a 16.5% offensive rebound rate, which is insane. 7% block rate, could get better. Screening, catching the ball, and finishing, some of that stuff, he's still building, but he was 13 years old when he started playing basketball, as we all saw on the broadcast. And the things that he does well are being massive, moving around on the floor very well for his size, and he's going to be an elite finisher. I mean, he was at 75% from two-point range this season. That's about as good as it gets, and it's what you should do when you're 7'2". It passes the bare minimum for sure, and then some, that he's taking ample use of every single bit of his size. The only nit I picked last night is when we were talking, is I was like, I don't, he won, I don't really personally, I'd be curious how you feel, although we basically didn't watch him enough to say this, but like, I don't really know about any sort of three-point shooting or anything. That feels far-fetched for somebody this size. It's basically the list is Victor Wembanyama, and that's it, of guys who have actually made shots at this size. I guess Bol, and even those guys aren't really great shooters, so I'm not sure I see that. And there's always going to be the limitations when a guy is this big. How many minutes can you play him? Whatever, foul trouble. Can he defend in the post at an elite? Like, all that stuff will come in time. But those are nitpicks. That's why I just said nitpick. I think he's going to be fantastic. And the last thing I'll say on my side of this is, whatever reservations you might have had, whatever questions you might have had, whatever things you want to see from him going forward as he continues to develop as a basketball player, I would imagine for anybody, that was flushed down the toilet when you saw the reaction that this dude had when he got drafted, and the response and answers that he gave to his interview after walking off that stage. That was like, you're going to see it in some kind of video package 5 years from now when he signs his second contract. Like, that is one of the best moments of the entire draft night, and it's hard to not just buy into a dude who cares like that, no matter what you think of what he is as a basketball player. Culture.
That's what the Suns are trying to build here. I'm not going to act like I know a bunch about Maluach's, upbringing, or what he was like in high school or college or whatever, right? But when I see a guy get that emotional and that hyped up to be where he is, that's what we need to see, man. It's a sense of culture, a buy-in that the Suns didn't have last year. And, I hate to switch it from that emotional aspect, but I just want to say this as well. The 7'6" wingspan guy, I see so much of Rudy Gobert in this guy, but I think this guy moves better than Rudy Gobert. And I get the defensive stuff that you were talking about before too, but I think the lateral quickness, man, he gets shifted onto guards, point guards, he's going to be just fine. So, like, for all those reasons, bringing it back to the emotional aspect, the Suns need these type of players that are not only talented, but bought in. And I agree with you, man. Kind of brings a tear to your eye when you see a guy of that nature, making it here and being a top 10 overall pick. Like, it could not have gone any better for the Suns. Gambo tweeted out his Gambo 5, right? I can't remember the last time he was wrong about it. And I thought the Suns might have even had more of a chance to get him, more than I thought they did last night, when he quote tweeted it and said, by the way, if Maluach is there, I just want everyone to know this is nothing, because it was telling the Suns, holy cow. And, just really quickly, the Raptors going all the way down to the wire, and it went down to 0.00 almost. It scared me there. I thought someone was going to leapfrog the Suns, but for everything you said, man, culture, basketball skill, upside, defensive anchor, this guy gets me excited. Carter Bryant did it. This was the high, I think, ceiling guy with, maybe some bust potential. But I mean, listen, I'm stoked for this guy, man. I don't feel like it's a Mo Bamba, Bull situation. Like, I think this guy cares, and I think he's going to be great here.
Let's get to the other big news of the day, and we'll go long in the last segment. You guys can send your questions in, and we will discuss, everything that's happened. But they made a trade, and it basically came down right after the pick. Like, it was like bang, bang. You're seeing Shamshrani on TV and trying to read all these tweets. Mark Williams also headed to the Phoenix Suns. Potentially the guy, you mentioned Rudy Gobert, but Mark Williams probably the guy that would be the most direct comp for Khaman Maluach, and then they got both. Why? What does it tell us? Is it the right move? Next. First, today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. There's nothing like stepping into your own outdoor space and feeling like you've escaped to a personal oasis. If you are wanting to update your patio this season, Wayfair has made it so easy to turn it into a space that feels like yours, comfortable, stylish, and ready for summer. Wayfair has everything you need to level up your outdoor space. Conversation sets, outdoor bars, fire pits, hot tubs, gazebos, and yes, even the perfect string lights to set the vibe. It's like giving your backyard that resort feel without the resort price tag. Wayfair has everything, frankly. I'm trying to think of, what's the thing to recommend. That lighting stuff is what really can just top off the perfect little outdoor space. For us in Arizona, maybe summer's not the time, but get it ready for winter. Get it ready for hosting around the holidays. Don't wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair and enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now. Shop their huge outdoor selection. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Thanks for sticking around, keeping the show rolling. Mark Williams, also a member of the Phoenix Suns, stamped and approved with a sun emoji tweet shortly after he was reported to be on the move, Ben.
I just want to say that's not nothing. I like the fact that the guy went out there immediately, was like, sun emoji, I'm here.
I think the dude wants to be saved from Charlotte. He thought he was free from the Hornets 4 months ago, and he ended up finally getting out of there. But 7 feet tall, huge wingspan, very similar measurables to Khaman Maluach. And Hornets center, third year out of, where did he go to college? Duke. So a lot of similarities here, right? But the other thing to mention, he has struggled to stay healthy. He has played 106 out of basically 240, 50 games that he could have played in his 3 seasons in the NBA. He was traded to the Lakers at the deadline to pair with Luka Doncic long-term. I'm sure Suns fans like the idea of stealing somebody from Luka and the Lakers. But he failed his physical, and the trade was undone. Charlotte tried to redo it because I believe Connect and him both had already flown over to their new teams, and it had to be backpedaled. And now he ends up here. Obviously, because of that, people did think he was available, but I don't think anybody thought that the Suns would be the team to go out and get him, and certainly not after they just drafted a dude who I keep saying is very, very similar. So what do you think of all this as you saw it come down and now having 2-3 hours to sit on it and think about it?
Yeah, it completely out of left field. And you and I both agreed to this. We're like, you and I even mentioned, I think, definitely jokingly on one of the earlier shows where I was like, I mean, could they get Mark Williams for Bradley Beal? And you're like, well, Mark Williams is a serviceable player. When Suns fans talked about Nick Richards being on the bench of the Hornets and being like, oh, this guy's pretty good, I was like, I remember saying, I don't think that's the good guy. I think the Suns got the second of the worst centers on a team in the Hornets who isn't very good. It's where my skepticism came. Now it comes with questions with Nick Richards. But overall, 7-foot guy, you know what it tells me is Gregory said, like, the only tangible thing we got in any of his press conferences is that he did mention a few times, teams are playing big. We can play 2 big guys. I don't rule out at some point various spots of the season, injuries, things of that nature, where the Suns have to start both guys, Maluach and Mark Williams. 7 foot.
I don't mean this negatively. I will rule that out. That would be a ridiculous thing to do.
Sure. My point only is they have talked about the 2 bigs. They want to get bigger. They want to get stronger. They do not want to be pushed around, and the Suns were soft last year. So I would agree with you. But a guy who averages a double-double, 15 and 10, I think the Suns team as well is putting really big emphasis on rebounding the freaking basketball. And I think, and I'm not sure if this is, we can talk about this later if we need to, but Mark Williams and Maluach, both guys shoot fairly well from the free throw line. So that leads me to believe as well, maybe the Suns are going to turn one of these guys into shooters. And that wasn't, my original thought. I saw that from Sam Cooper of the Timeline podcast. I thought that was really interesting as well. So I like the deal because looking back at it a few months ago, the Lakers gave up an unprotected first-round pick and Dalton Connect for Mark Williams. The Suns gave up the 29th overall pick and a protected 1 through 5 pick just in case DEFCON 1 happens and the Suns need to be able to get that pick back. And it's the least of like 4 playoff teams, least favorable. I don't think the Suns would have gotten a guy better than Mark Williams at the 29th overall pick and the pick in a few years from now. So I like it, man. I think it was a fine deal. And my last point would be Maluach is going to play off the bench this year. He's very raw. Get a guy that some people comp him to, like you did just a second ago with Mark Williams. Allow him to be mentored under that guy a bit and give Devin Booker a win-now player to keep them competitive. That was a mouthful, but that was my reaction to it. What about you, man? I don't mean to fill it up.
And I appreciate you going back and filling in the trade because I didn't fully say it. It's the 29th pick tonight, which they didn't use. That became Liam McNeely, who will play for the Hornets and become the Dalton Connect that they wanted. And then the 2029 pick of the Cleveland, Utah, the worst of those 2 teams' firsts that the Suns acquired at the deadline this past year when they split the 2031 pick into 3. So, talk about mouthful. That's a mouthful, but that's what they sent. And Vasa Micic. So they did save a little bit of money. They did another trade with the center with the Hornets. They've now gotten Richards, sent them Nurkic, and now gotten Mark Williams. And Vasa Micic spent 4 months in Phoenix and now is headed back with his salary needing to be guaranteed for this deal back to the Hornets where he came from overseas to start playing. Actually, no, I guess he was started with the Thunder, but you know what I mean. So that's the deal. As far as what I thought about it, I don't think that it's reasonable to play both together. But I also think it's given that the alternatives were Nick Richards, who we all saw for 6 months, 4 months, whatever, and didn't love, and that Oso, may or may not even be a center ideally, or has to be in a very specific situation, not somebody you wanted to rely on. I feel good now that this is 48 minutes of massive center play that I like, right? Like that's a good thing to have. So even if they don't play together, even if they don't develop as shooters, you could do worse in terms of that was a position of need and you answered it resoundingly. Now, in terms of the value, in terms of the kind of next thing, like I hate to be this guy. One, I think there was reason to be excited that Mark Williams could develop well with Luka Doncic, throwing him lobs, the way that we saw Gafford and Lively really explode, and on a more veteran team and things like that. Mark Williams we saw firsthand. He had one game where he was just, beasting against the Suns, had like a 20-20 game or whatever. Then the other game, it was a low light reel. Kevin Durant was manipulating this dude, like toying with him on cuts and things like that. And he does not have the level of defensive awareness that he needs to have to be a defensive anchor right now in the NBA. So yeah, he's going to start. He'll be good. I would think he'll be better than Nick Richards. This is not a guy that is like plug in and you have a good center now. He is a project too. He is developing too. And so that brings me to the part of it that I think it compounds my questions here about the overall plan, the overall idea of this is he's already extension eligible, and next summer he'll be a restricted free agent. So it's nice to say that now. I am curious if this lasts longer than 1 year before it starts to become you got to make a decision for the long term. That's what I would say I'm worried about with this more than anything is, does he develop fast enough to be able to make a good decision about an extension or a new contract for him without feeling like you're rolling the dice on a guy who's still a project? Or do they already have to shake things up again next year and then we're talking about a rental or what's the next move or what's, you know what I mean? That part of it is looming over this in a way that makes me a little uneasy.
Yeah, to me, man, I hear your concerns. Really, I do. I think the Suns, because of also the guy that they drafted, I think the Suns understand that they're trying to compete this year as well. To what extent, I don't know. Not champions, not Western Conference Finals teams, but I think this as well plays a huge factor in Devin Booker and his future. Like, we're showing you we're committed to winning, as well as what I really like about it too. You mentioned that restricted free agent next year. Restricted free agent. Suns can make a decision on an offer sheet with anyone. I understand your concerns. To be honest with you, my biggest concern with Mark Williams is the injury history, which we, kind of harped on a little bit. But that is the biggest issue for me when it comes to him, because I've played the injury game over the past couple of years. I didn't love it. So the Suns, obviously, health staff's going to be tested here with this guy. But I think, again, a lob threat.
We don't know why he failed his physical, right? I'm like, I've never really seen.
It was a mystery.
Oh, it was this body part or this lingering thing. Like, I'm sure the behind the scenes, the Lakers, the Hornets, probably the Suns now, they know what the injury was. I'm not saying nobody knows, but for me, just analyzing it, I agree with you. That's a big question mark. And if it's a lower body thing and he's 7'2", I mean, it's going to be hard to shy away or ignore that.
And it could make other teams skeptical about giving this guy an extension. Maybe the Suns see that they can build this guy up under Jordan Ott, and maybe he plays 75 games this year, and teams are like, what guy are we getting? The Suns actually know, and maybe they get a bargain on him. Like, I see this more as a positive than I do a negative, because I like, even if it's 1 year, man, giving Maluach a guy to be mentored under, and I really like
that's
giving
the other
Devin
thing.
Booker a team.
Mentored. Is Mark Williams a professor now? We just say that when there's older guy, younger guy. Okay, he's going to learn from him. I have no idea. Mark Williams has to want to do that. He's vying for his next contract. He's played less than half of his NBA games. So why would we just assume, plug these two guys in together, the one who happens to be 4 years older will just inherently then teach the younger one? It's like I'm saying the same thing with KD. Sure. Jabari Smith Jr. is just going to learn from KD because they're on the same team. I have no idea. I don't know that happens.
Sure.
Everybody has to want that to happen.
Sure.
Khaman Maluach has to want to be taught. I mean, all these things are. Those are all just random assumptions. We can't. I can't. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I can't build that into. I can't build that into evaluating the trade. Is my point. I can't say, the trade's extra good because he's going to teach Maluach. I have no clue if that's going to happen.
There you go. It's fine. That's a good point. I hear your concerns. I think they're valid concerns, but overall, I like Mark Williams being added to this team, put him at the center position, and I believe it is a massive upgrade over what they had now, and potentially
100%.
We'll see with Nick Richards. Maybe this makes a deal possible where you're moving Grayson Allen somewhere, and you're also moving Oso Ighodaro. Like, before we can judge this deal, I think we learned this with the Kevin Durant trade the other day, right? We said, let's see what they do with the 10th overall pick. I don't know how everyone else is feeling, but I'm feeling a little bit better about that Kevin Durant deal today. Now, listen, they still got the better player, but I feel better about it. Let's see what the Suns do. Maybe they package Grayson Allen and Oso Ighodaro, and they get more picks back. And then you're like, all right, one pick, and I've got Oso Ighodaro's replacement and Mark Williams and Maluach as well. Like, I think we need to take a little bit of time before we judge this a little hard. Let's wait and see how other things pan out. And then in a couple of months, we can go after them if it doesn't work out, which we will
do. These are the types of risks that you have to take. We're not talking about, you're not, investing in the stock market with Warren Buffett's treasure trove, or you're not, you don't have a royal flush in your hand trying to play at a poker table. This is depleted assets, desperation moves. This is what this offseason was going to be for the Suns. So agreed. If you were to say, hey, they have this weird split pick that they did with the Jazz and the Cavs thing, and they got KD on a 1-year deal at 37, and they got all these little random things that they have to try to turn into a team, a real team that can at least be respectable next season. You got to take some risks. You got to get a guy who has health concerns. You got to, take a dude who has overlap positionally at 10 and try to build Jalen Green up and all these sorts of things. That's just what it is right now for this team. I have something that I want to circle back on that you said about Mark Williams there too, that I think will get us to the rest of the offseason, about the improvement this season. That being the best they could have done, or could they have done better? Was this the move to get Williams to answer that problem, to fill that hole? Next. First, today's show is brought to you by our friends at Skims. When we found out here on the Locked On Podcast Network, look, a lot of dudes hosting shows. I'm not going to, lie to you guys. We were intrigued. Skims makes underwear for men? Okay, hold on. We've heard a lot about quality. We've seen it online. Shay's got a nice, brief on in some Instagram ad or whatever. We got Donovan Mitchell doing his thing. But hold on. Wait, we can wear them. They're not just for famous people. They're pretty affordable. They're pretty nice and comfortable for everyday use and everybody. Okay, interesting. Everybody's had their own issues, right? Like, you have the thing you like, you're picky, you're specific. Skims has something for everybody, not just men's options, but a lot of them, and something to get you hooked for your lifestyle. They have active for workouts. They have lounger type, just, around the house, working, running errands, whatever. And then they have some, sturdier, whatever, if you're, I don't know, maybe you want to wear a nice suit, or you're trying to just, get it to match the occasion, so to speak, down there physically, feeling comfortable, feeling right, matching what you need to match. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you by selecting podcast in the survey. Try it for yourself and select our show in the drop-down menu when you make that purchase. Again, to let them know we sent you. All right, Ben. Final segment. We got a lot to get to. Drop your questions as I said. My little comment said 175 from the chat since I last switched over. I appreciate it. Your comments, if you have a question, you think we're going to forget them, I am looking through them. I am starring them. If you have a question, we will answer them at the end. And we will answer the age-old question of who is taller between me and Brendon. Oh, okay. Someone asked that, or are we just going there?
I think I saw
who's taller
between
Maluach and Mark Williams? Maluach, I think.
Maluach. Dude,
he's listed as taller.
I can't wait to see both of the you know what? Screw that. I'm excited. I'll let you get to the thing you were teasing before that, but I'm excited to see this team walk through the tunnel and be like, God, this team got bigger. Holy hell, there's a lot less Tyus Joneses and Bradley Beals on this team, and a lot more
Oso playing center. Yeah.
You almost made me want to go into another point, but I'm going to let you do your thing.
My question, to circle back on one other thing you said about Mark Williams here, is that you said, it's a really good solution to an obvious problem that they had. And I agree. It is, of course. It's better than Oso. It's better than Nick Richards. It's better than Nurk, whatever, on down the line, Mason Plumlee, Drew Eubanks, whatever you want to say. Is it the best they could have done? If, factoring in value, right? Like, they had to give up more here. They gave up 2 first-round picks. They're probably not great firsts. 2027, we'll see. or 2029, sorry, I should say. We'll see. But, we talked about, could they get somebody on the taxpayer mid-level? Could they get, Kalkbrenner at 29, for example? Could they trade Grayson for somebody? There was so many different versions of trying, or, I've seen some questions in the chat already of like the different centers we theoretically were thinking they had a chance at in the Kevin Durant trade. This is the path now. This is how they got their center. Do you like it? Or you could have just rolled in with Maluach and Nick Richards. So, how do you feel about it from that standpoint? The resources that they allocated to get Mark Williams as the kind of ultimate decision on plugging this hole we've been talking about for months.
Yes, I think this was the best that they could do. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think this was way better than what I thought they could do because of the assets they have. Williams is a question mark because of the injuries and because of the looming contract extension next year that you had mentioned as well. But I'm not buying into this idea that the Suns gave up a lot for him. So if I'm answering that question, yeah, I do kind of think so because I look around the league for centers. I mean, you weren't going to get Zubac, Jokic, and Embiid, Anthony Davis. Like this guy, I think is in the, like if we're ranking the top 30 centers, top 30 starting centers, he's in the top third. He's probably 9 or 10 or 8. But I look around and I'm like, I don't think you could have gotten any of the other guys ahead of him. And this was their biggest concern. So I'll say yes, and then I'll let you answer your own question.
I think it's all going to come down to the next contract for him.
Yeah,
truly.
We're going to have to wait for that to come out.
You're talking about like, okay, we saw the KD trade, and then you had to wait until today to see what they did at 10. And, now with this, I think to me, the incomplete part of this is the contract part of it. Like we just saw Daniel Gafford get $20 million for a team that already has 2 other centers on it, and Anthony Davis and Derek Lively, and they still gave him $20 million. Part of that's because I think we all still assume they'll trade him eventually. But, I think Mark Williams is going to get paid a lot of money. I think he's going to get paid $25, $30 million next year. If he can, especially if he can stay relatively healthy, play 60 games or something. I don't think they're going to extend him right now because I just don't think you can run that risk with the health concerns. But if he plays the majority of games and plays well, and this team is respectable next season, he's going to get paid a lot of money. And that's going to hinge because, they're not keeping these 2 guys for the next 10 years. That's just not happening. So one of them's gone somehow is my view of this. They're going to trade one of them for something else eventually. And the thing that would jeopardize getting a good situation with whatever has to move eventually on this would be if you get into a situation where you're overpaying. Now, I know I'm way ahead of myself, but you have to think about that. They just swung 2 massive moves in a huge inflection point day for the organization, and they went all in on the same exact player as the clone. That's a weird thing to do, and it has to make you think about the future because I don't think they can play together. So for this year, sure. I don't know if it's the best they could have done. I'll have to answer that question, I guess, when I see the taxpayer mid-level guys. Like if Horford actually goes for that amount of money, I would have kind of liked Horford, if I'm being honest. We don't really know what they could have gotten in the Kevin Durant trade. So I was kind of throwing a hypothetical that was unanswerable at you to be a little, tease. But like, I don't hate it for this season, would be my answer to my own question. But it's impossible to not make it about more than that.
I am a fan of calculated risks, and I don't think the risk is that huge for Mark Williams because, again, the stipulations of the pick that they sent. They sent Liam McNeely, effectively, who... good player. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he does turn into something more, but he was never going to be a Sun guy. And kind of looking at like Drake Powell, we both really liked him. He was gone at 22. So I have to combine the pick that tonight.
That was surprising.
That was it surprising? You and I both really liked him. I think it just means you and I. I think it just means you and I did a pretty good job of scouting this year in terms of.
Yeah, him and Carter Bryant only went 8 picks apart. Like I was kind of teasing yesterday.
Yeah, such a good point by you. Such a good point. But either way, I'm a fan of the calculated risks. And because of what they gave up for Mark Williams, I'm going to choose it to see to see it like this. tonight, I'm willing to do the later on things later on. If Mark Williams is awesome, hell yeah, give the dude an extension. Maluach continues to develop. In case everyone forgets, he's 18 freaking years old, and he's here for the long term. And then, yeah, eventually they will move on from Mark Williams if when Maluach comes into his own. And then the other thing is like, okay, if he stinks, there's another avenue. What if Maluach takes a massive leap this year? And then you're talking about you have a starting center there. Maybe you can sign and trade Mark Williams another direction. You still get assets back. It's not there's other, it can be a doomsday scenario. It absolutely can be. But because of what they gave up, I'm going to choose to say, because of the calculated risks, I was okay with the Suns doing that. You know what I wouldn't have been okay with? If they passed on Maluach at 10 and did someone else, because I was already getting ready for my rant of, you don't get to take these big of risks yet. You haven't deserved it. And I think that risk, definitely worth it, especially when you compare it to what the Lakers gave up, which was a mid-first round pick. I think Connect was the 17th overall pick and an unprotected first-round pick. I don't know where the Lakers are going to be.
In the future, I believe it was 29 or 31, their own,
I think it was
unprotected.
20. I think it might have been
20.
29.
Luka will only be, like 30 by then, so it's probably not going to be like some kind of amazing pick, but it's unprotected, which makes
guys can break their legs.
I said Cleveland and Utah to me, and I meant to also include that pick that the Suns are giving up in 2029. It's the least favorable of those two teams, as well as Minnesota, who has Anthony Edwards, and it's probably going to be good for a while. So the Suns pick is just almost sure to be pretty bad. And one of those three teams is going to be decent, you know.
And just to like throw that out there, just throw something out there as well. Like, this is dumb, but it is top 5 protected. Like, let's say they all suck. The Suns still get the pick if it's a top 5 protected pick. I won't worry about that either. I think it's going to be a 29, 28, 30 pick. I'd rather
that would
Mark
have
Williams
to be
than that.
All three of the teams are
sure.
I think in the top 5.
I am 100% agreeing with you. It's probably not going to happen. But if in case, because we're talking doomsday scenarios,
sure,
they did cover their butt a little bit. So yeah, man.
So to me, okay. Next steps off of that. One last question on this whole saga. Do you think that they had the Mark Williams thing done and then Maluach fell and then they just said F?
Yes. Yep. I think it's exactly what happened.
Should they have pivoted off of the Mark Williams thing when Maluach fell?
I think it was already done. And I'm going to be honest with you. I can't lie to you. I probably would have backed off of it. Mark
Williams gets untraded again.
Yeah. Mark Williams was definitely oh crap, Maluach really fell to us.
But okay, but like it wasn't that unlikely that Maluach would fall. It wasn't like he was supposed to go third. So
it felt
if
pretty
that's
unlikely.
what happened, then that feels a little frustrating. But we don't know. It's kind of there's so many what ifs even within that question that I'm not gonna like hammer them for it. But to me, it's like I guess. Yeah, but if it is what happened and all that was holding them back was being like good negotiators with Charlotte or something, that shouldn't have mattered. I would have just said, sorry, Hornets, we're not doing the deal. Sorry, Mark Williams agent. Sorry, Hornets, it's not happening.
If it happened,
we don't
if
know.
It happened, and just so we're clear, I agree with you. I think, well, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I do think. I'm sure Gambo will report on it tomorrow, but I do think that Maluach fell into their lap, and they're like, we have to take this kid. So,
and Mark Williams' agent is not Mark Bartlesian, by the way, just in case anyone was wondering.
Is he from Michigan?
So I felt like I would just share it with everybody.
Did he go to a Michigan State basketball game this year?
Maybe. You never know. He was out there in, I guess he was in ACC country, not really.
Oh, man, someone's being mean to you. They said you're a killjoy. I just think you're being, I chose, and I told you before the show, I was going to be the positive. Let's go. Let's celebrate tonight, and we'll get to it tomorrow. And I appreciate you playing the level-headed role tonight. I think we needed that. Just so we're clear.
One thing that actually, speaking to the chat, that somebody Animal put in here, that Maluach has said that he already has a relationship with Mark Williams. I like that. That makes me feel better about some of the, teaching mentorship stuff that we were kind of debating a minute ago. But okay, a few questions off this. One, Nick Richards, he is guaranteed $0 this upcoming season. We had assumed that it was a shoo-in that they would just keep him because they didn't have anybody else. Now they do. His deadline is the 29th, which is 4 days from now. Do you think that they keep him on? Do you think they guarantee that money? And secondly, do you think he's on the roster?
Nick Richards. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that first part because I was looking to say Nick Richards. I don't think there's a world Nick Richards is here next year.
Okay, so do they cut him or trade him?
I think they're going to have to trade him. And
hopefully there's value that they can get back.
Now here's that part of it. And again, I don't want to take 15 minutes answering a singular question, but other teams might know what had just happened. I saw that too. I couldn't find it. Other teams might know what just happened and be like, why would we give you anything? You're about to cut him. But if the Suns could recoup at least one of those second round picks that they traded for Nick Richards, I'd be okay with it. Because I was never the biggest fan of Nick Richards. And I think other teams will see him as a serviceable backup. And I like Oso Ighodaro more. And I know that they don't necessarily play the same role, but I'd rather keep Oso here than Nick. But I will say that he will get traded. You?
I hope they can find a trade. I think that they'll try like hell to find one in the next 4 days. And if they don't find one that they like, they just cut him. You
don't think you don't think he can get a second rounder? One. I think they can find that.
Center is a pretty loaded position around the NBA.
Except for in Phoenix. It is now. Well, we're loaded now, baby.
Even then, a bunch of them have come through here. They just can't get it to freaking work. But, okay, then that's one thing out of the way. I think that the other thing to get to is, to me, this makes it even more pertinent for the Suns and urgent for the Suns to get another playmaker on this roster. I would have preferred. It feels like now we can probably say that they're not going to have even a spacing option at the center spot. This is probably going to be the 48 minutes of center that we're going to see for the healthy Suns, unless, and I mentioned this before, they see one of these guys as a future stretch big. One of them. I would lean towards Maluach.
Well,
but not this year. They're not. Neither one of them is going to shoot this year. Would be my assumption. Right?
I don't think they're going to shoot consistently this year, but I think they're going to try to slowly form one of those guys to it, where I think by the end of the year, maybe one of them is taking more threes, but I don't think they're going to be like gunning, you're right, like 2 a night. I don't think it's going to be the case.
Even then, I don't think Maluach is likely to do it, but Mark Williams is definitely not going to become a shooter.
I was going to say,
we can just stop that. He played Duke for 2 years. He's been in the NBA for 3 years. He's not going to suddenly become a shooter in his 5th year of advanced basketball.
If I was picking one, I'd say Maluach too, just so we're clear. I would agree.
So if we say that, then I think you just need a playmaker because these guys are rim runners. Everybody got excited with Mark Williams. Oh, he gets to play with Luka? Cool. Well, Suns don't have anybody close to that in terms of a pick-and-roll passer. Jalen Green's definitely not that player. Book, people have always kind of teased him a little bit for not being a lob passer. That's just not really a skill that he has for whatever reason. Maybe it'll come now that they have a guy to throw it to, and Chris Paul's not having to run the offense. I'm sure Book is not a zero in that department, but they should have another playmaker. So is that bringing Monte Morris back? That's not exactly like a pure passer either. Tyus Jones potentially. We saw some in the chat. I really would be opposed to that personally. I just don't think it's worth doing.
I'm out.
The defense was so bad, and I just don't think it's worth it. I would try for somebody a little younger personally if I could.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I agree with you, but I mean, you said the name, so I'm just going to ask you. Well, what about Chris Paul? Would you be opposed to him?
I don't hate the idea of Chris Paul coming back. I also just think people are undercounting that Colin Gillespie is going to play a ton of minutes at the point for this team this season. I mean,
might tell you what they think of him.
Even if it's just as a backup, like Gambo was alluding to this on the radio today. He mentioned this. I think it's true. He played well enough. Bud just seemed to hate him for no good reason. I think that he should be playing. He should at least be getting minutes. And
I think Bud was trying to get fired.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how Colin Gillespie is particularly as like a pick and roll passer either. I'm not going to say that I do. He didn't really play that way in Denver. Suns didn't really play that way last year, but I think he's going to be an option there.
I'm sorry. I just read a stupid comment. I just read some stupid comment that came up. Sorry.
Other thing I'm kind of seeing in the chat that I think is worth talking about right now would be Grayson Allen.
I've got a few of those starred. I don't know if you see that in the thing, but I have them starred, some of the questions in there.
So I think, like you mentioned it a second ago, I think combining Oso with any of these trades we're talking about now is a real possibility. I know people like him, and I like him. I think he could be a good player in the NBA, but we're already saying, what are they going to do with Nick Richards? And then you get to Oso. I just don't see where there's going to be minutes for Oso Ighodaro next year, and he's going to be 24 next season. Like, it's probably better to try to see if you can get some value in a trade at this point with him and sell high a little and, fork over your center rotation to the guys you just acquired. So I think he could definitely be added in with picks, added in with Grayson, added in with Royce or Beal to get a trade done.
And I love that. I like Oso. I do like Oso. But I know the ceiling on Oso Ighodaro. Maybe an 8th man on a championship winning team. I think tops 7th man. If I could get a first-round pick back for Grayson and Oso, because someone's like, oh, okay, Grayson's shooting, and I kind of get a young guy in Oso that's kind of fun. Like if I could get that back, which I think is very plausible, or flip those two guys for a point guard, yeah, do it. I'm not trading Ryan Dunn. Like I'm not moving off of that. But I mean, Oso, I'd do it. So for sure, I'd move Oso.
Would you do like Grayson and Oso for Patrick Williams in a first?
That's the contract for Patrick Williams. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would.
I think I probably would do that too.
First round pick?
Actually gives them a power forward. I know he's probably like a lost cause and whatever.
Maybe not though.
But he's an actual 4, and they need that. They very badly need that. And that's kind of the last thing I was going to close on, which is why I brought that trade up, is they needed forwards. We thought they would at least get one tonight between 10 and 29. They ended up getting 2 centers. So, they have 52 and 59 on Thursday. They have the 5 seconds from the Rockets trade, some of which we assume that they might try to use with Beal, especially now that they have one fewer first to attach to Beal. But whatever way they do it, I would hope that whether it's a trade or maybe the taxpayer MLE, although that's not really a high enough salary to bet on getting anybody all that great with, or with the draft, trading up tomorrow, whatever it might look like, they gotta have a bite at the apple of a forward with some upside who they get on this roster this offseason. They can't. I mean, Mark Williams can't get 25 rebounds a night, and Ryan Dunn is not ready to be that for a competent team. So that's a huge need still. He wasn't a good rebounder last year. He does a lot of things. Ryan Dunn's a great, promising player. Rebounding's not one of those things. So plug him in as your full-time 4. You're going to be giving stuff up. So it's a big need right now, and I'm curious how they solve it.
Can I just? I mean, I know you don't want to be super long, but there's a couple of these questions in here. Really quickly, I don't know if asking who should we pick for 52nd and 59, like we don't know. So let's do this. Do you have a guy in the second round? Because I think you and I are still both of the belief the Suns are going to package those 2 picks to move up. Do you have a guy that you're like, interesting? And I think we're going to say the same guy.
Well, Kalkbrenner didn't get picked, right?
Nope.
And Thiero didn't get picked.
Thiero did not get picked.
So those 2 guys. Did Reynaud get picked? I don't think he did.
Maxime Reynaud did not get picked unless he got picked super early. I've got it in front of me.
No, he didn't. The Clippers took Niederhauser, who I literally had never heard of him.
Penn State guy. First round pick from Penn State ever. Drop some knowledge on you.
And then Danny Wolf went 27th, so that kind of his slide ended up swallowing up one of the big man spots toward the end of the first round. So those 3 names, I mean, they're guys we had already talked about, so I think they would
Noah Pinda didn't go.
Near the top of my list. Yeah,
Noah Pinda.
I mean, Penda's a 4 for sure. So
I'll say Penda or Adu Thiero. You and I have talked about him. We literally talked about them in the last show, so we don't have to go super deep. If you want us to hear about them, go to literally the last show we just did before this. Adu No more Barlstein players. So Williams on the last year of his contract. We answered that. Yes,
Yeah.
restricted free agent at the end of this year. Do you want to move Bol to the 4? I mean, wasn't he already a 4?
Bol's going to be on this team next year.
Yeah, okay, so let's answer that question. I don't think he's here next year. Do you?
Well, he'd be, I guess, one of the spacing center options, but I don't think he's a center. I agree with you. He already was a 4. He's been a 4 for most of the time he's been with the Suns. He played next to Nurk a lot. He played next to Eubanks a lot. He played next to Richards even. So, yeah, he's a 4.
We did talk about this, but I'll just mention it. I think I would just say you and I both, I think, believe Oso Ighodaro, I guess the mention for the audio audience, are Oso and Nick gone now? Oso Ighodaro, I think you and I could both see him be gone. Nick Richards as well. We mentioned that we could see him be gone. I mean, this could be a question for both of us. I think they just added me because I literally tweeted in there. Do you think Tyus would be better if he came back now that we have Mark and Maluach? No.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
I just don't think it's a necessary option for the Suns. It's not like the team is going to be in a much different place this upcoming season to where Tyus Jones limitations, you're not talking about him holding them back from the big 3 fitting or, making the championship round or anything. But still, he is what he is. I would rather devote those resources to somebody who could potentially get better. And I know I said Monte Morris, he's not going to get better. He's older than Tyus. But, I like Gillespie getting minutes. I would like to see if they could get somebody else who is more in that age range. Or just like somebody who's legit like Chris Paul, just, full-on minimum super old vet type guy. Like if Mike Conley were available, he's not. That type of thing. Malcolm Brogdon I've mentioned as could they get him on the taxpayer mid-level? Like that type of thing if they can't go young.
Almost 500 people in the chat, but the age-old question still reigns. How does this team logically get rid of Beal? If we had the answer, we would be in the Suns front office. But I think we're both in agreement that he can't be here next year.
Still waiting on specifics of all the people who tell us that he is movable. We'll see. I mean, I know people are looking at the Bulls, the Wizards, maybe the Hornets again. We just keep seeing Suns Hornets trades. We'll see. But yeah,
if
guess
you
is as good as mine, Chatter.
From it's true. What's your ideal pass first point guard you want that's actually gettable? I know we kind of mentioned this, but do you have one that comes to mind right away? I think for me, just really quick, I think I'd say Chris Paul actually, because I think you could get him on a vet minimum. But I don't want to spend a ton of money there.
Yeah, I think I'll just say Brogdon, who I mentioned a minute ago.
Okay. I think that's it for now. Anyone that missed out, man. Little Q&A session there, which I liked.
We'll have one more episode.
500 people almost.
Hopefully with Zach. Yeah, we appreciate all of you guys. Hopefully
yeah,
with Zach
thanks
Cohen
for hanging out with us.
Tell us a little bit more about Maluach. Maybe help us make sense of whoever the Suns do get in the second round. And it's just getting started. There's going to be fireworks. I mean, Mark Williams came out of absolutely nowhere. I don't think that name had come out of my mouth since February when Luka almost got him. And now he's a member of this team. So that tells you everything you need to know. We'll have plenty of episodes getting you guys up to date on all of it for the rest of June into July. Enjoy round 2 tomorrow, and we'll catch you right afterward.